Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening.
John slid into the bustling energy of the neon-lit bar, his eyes scanning the crowded space for a familiar face. Instead, a figure he'd never seen before caught his attention. The woman, with luminescent skin and eyes that seemed to capture starlight, was unmistakably not from around here. Or perhaps not from this planet. He approached her, his curiosity piqued. "Haven't seen you around before. Are you new to Neon York?" She turned, her smile a slow-spreading delight. "Yes, you could say that. I'm Mira," she responded, her voice a melodic contrast to the bass thumping through the bar. "John," he replied, offering a hand. Mira took it, her grip confident yet unfamiliar with the human custom. "What brings you to this corner of the city?" Exploring her surroundings with wide, curious eyes, Mira answered, "I'm here to learn, to experience. Everything here is so vibrant, so alive. It's different from where I come from." John was intrigued. "Where is that exactly?" He waved the bartender over, ordering 2 of the house specials without taking his eyes off Mira. "Farther than you can imagine," she said with a laugh, her gaze turning back to the crowd. As they sipped their drinks, the noise around them seemed to fade, their conversation drawing them into a bubble of shared curiosity. "What's the biggest surprise about Earth so far?" John asked, genuinely interested in her perspective. "The diversity," Mira replied, scanning the room. "So many different people, all together, yet each distinctly unique." John nodded. "Yeah, it's a mosaic, all right, but not always harmonious." He hesitated, then added, "Not sure how much you know about us, but humans can be complicated." Myra's eyes locked onto his. "So I've seen. And yet, there's beauty in that complexity, don't you think?" Their dialogue was cut short as a group of John's friends arrived, boisterous and buzzing with the night's energy. John introduced Mira, who greeted each new face with a polite nod and a quiet smile. Tom, one of John's closest friends, leaned in, his voice loud over the music. "Hey, John, who's your friend? She looks like she walked right out of a cosmic opera." Mira laughed, the sound light and clear. "Maybe I did. Or maybe I'm just here to experience your human operas firsthand." The group chuckled, and the evening rolled on with Mira and John often resuming their more intimate conversation amidst the laughter and stories of the larger group. They discussed everything from galactic travel to local cuisine, each topic further proving that Mira was not just a visitor from another city, but from another world. As the night deepened, John felt a profound connection taking root. "Mira, would you like to see more of the city?" he asked, as their friends began to disperse. "I'd like that very much," she answered, her eyes reflecting the neon lights, promising stories of their own. Together, they stepped out into the cool night, the city sprawling before them, alive with possibilities. As they walked, the buzz of the bar faded into a quiet hum, the first chapter of an extraordinary encounter unfolding beneath the starry sky. The city was quieter away from the bar, its pulse still palpable under the sweep of neon lights that painted the streets. John and Mira meandered through Neon York, a maze of light and shadow, with the hum of the nightlife a constant backdrop. "So, Mira, you mentioned learning about our cultures. What's been the most fascinating part for you?" John asked, genuinely interested in her thoughts. Mira paused, looking up at the towering buildings that loomed like sentinels of the night. "It's the art," she said, her voice reflective. "Art in all its forms. It speaks so much about its creators." John nodded, leading her towards a public display of digital art that transformed the side of a building into a shifting tapestry of light and motion. "Like this. It's a local artist's work. Captures the vibe of the city, don't you think?" "It's beautiful," Mira murmured, her gaze fixed on the swirling colors. "On my world, art is more static, permanent. This is like watching a soul breathe." John smiled at the description. "Never heard it put quite like that before, but I like it. Makes me see it a bit differently." They continued to walk, eventually reaching a quieter part of the city. The change in scenery brought a change in conversation. "Mira, if you don't mind me asking, what's it like? Your world, I mean, it's different, she began, her tone suggesting layers of meaning. We have cities and cultures, yes, but our society is more regulated. Everyone has a role, a purpose defined from birth. John raised his eyebrows. Sounds rigid. Don't you ever wish to be something else? Something chosen by you? There's comfort in certainty, Mira replied. But being here, seeing your world, it's opened my eyes to the charm of choice. Their talk was interrupted by the sound of laughter and chatter as they neared a late-night diner. Hungry? John asked. Food's another form of art, after all. Inside, they slid into a booth, and John ordered them some classic Earth cuisine. As they waited, Mira watched the interactions around them, her curiosity never waning. This, for instance, she pointed out, observing a family enjoying a meal together. Simple joys, shared freely. We have family units, too, but our interactions are more formal. John chuckled as their food arrived. Well, let's enjoy some informal human dining then. Hope you like fries and milkshakes. As they ate, the conversation flowed naturally. Mira was quick to try everything, her delight in new tastes evident. This is delicious, she exclaimed, trying the milkshake. There's nothing like this back home. I'm glad you like it, John said, watching her with a smile. You know, Mira, it's rare to meet someone who sees the world with such wonder. Makes you appreciate the little things more. They talked late into the night, sharing stories of their worlds, their dreams, and occasionally, their doubts. When it was time to leave, the streets were almost empty, the earlier vibrancy of the city subdued under the late hour. Thank you, John, for this night, Mira said as they stood outside the diner. For sharing your world with me. Thank you for being so open about yours, he replied. It's not every day you meet someone from another planet. They laughed together, the sound mingling with the night air. John walked Mira back to her temporary residence, their steps slow, neither eager for the evening to end. As they reached her door, Mira turned to him. John, would you like to see my world? I mean, not literally travel there, but through images, stories? I'd like that very much, John replied, his curiosity piqued further. Then it's a date, Mira said with a smile. Tomorrow? Tomorrow, John confirmed, feeling as though a new chapter in his life had just begun. As he walked back home, the city seemed a little brighter, a little more mysterious, and infinitely more intriguing. John arrived at Myra's place the next evening with a mix of excitement and curiosity. He carried a small projector in his bag, a tool they could use to view images of Myra's home planet. Mira greeted him at the door, her smile brightening the dim hallway. Welcome back, John, she said, stepping aside to let him in. Her living space was modest but filled with small, fascinating artifacts from her world, a blend of her heritage and her current explorations on Earth. John set up the projector on a small table. Ready to take a tour of your home from my living room? He asked, half joking. More than ready, Mira replied, her eyes reflecting her eagerness. She handed him a data chip. I've brought some images and clips. I think you'll find them quite different. As the projector flickered to life, the walls of the room were bathed in the light of another world. Vast landscapes spread out before them, crystalline structures, floating cities, and verdant terrains unlike anything on Earth. Wow, it's beautiful, John murmured, genuinely impressed. It looks peaceful. It can be, Mira acknowledged, but it's also a world with strict rules and roles, as I mentioned. Everyone and everything in its place. John looked over at her, noticing a hint of something unspoken in her tone. Do you miss it? He ventured. Sometimes, she confessed. I miss the beauty, the familiarity. But I cherish the freedom I have here, the chance to explore who I can be outside of those predetermined roles. The evening passed with Mira narrating stories behind each image, celebrations that lit up the night skies of her planet, the intricacies of her people's technology, and the solemn, beautiful ceremonies that marked significant life events. It's like you're from a future we've not yet imagined, John said, engrossed in her descriptions, but also tied to traditions that seem almost ancient. That's an accurate observation, Mira responded, pausing on an image of a grand architectural marvel. Our progress in some areas comes at the cost of freedom in others. The conversation shifted as they moved away from the projector, and Mira asked John about his own life, his work, his passions, and his dreams for the future. "I'm a tech developer," John explained, his enthusiasm evident as he spoke of his latest project, a new kind of communication tool he hoped would make it easier for people of different languages and cultures to understand each other. "I guess I'm trying to bring the world closer, in my own way." "That's a noble pursuit," Mira said, her admiration clear. "Making connections is important." They spent hours talking, moving from the cosmic to the personal. John found himself sharing thoughts and ideas he rarely voiced, driven by Myra's genuine interest and her insightful responses. Eventually, the night grew late, and John stood to leave. "Thank you for sharing your world with me, Mira. It's given me a lot to think about. And thank you for listening, for being here," Mira replied, walking him to the door. "I hope we can share more about my world and yours." "Absolutely," John agreed, stepping out into the cool night air. "Let's do this again soon. There's a lot more I want to learn about you and from you." As John walked home, his mind buzzed not only with images of another world, but with the realization of how deeply he was drawn to Mira. It was a connection that transcended worlds, born of shared curiosity and the joy of discovery. A connection that was quickly becoming impossible to ignore. The evening began with laughter as John playfully fumbled with the fancy food platter he had attempted to prepare for their third meeting. Mira watched amusedly, her eyes lighting up the small kitchen. "You know, for a species that prides itself on technological advances, you humans sometimes struggle with the basics of food presentation," Mira teased as she rearranged the clumsily assembled cheese and fruit on the plate. "I'm better with tech than with a cheese knife," John admitted with a chuckle. "But it's the thought that counts, right?" "Absolutely," Mira agreed, taking a delicate bite of a strangely cut, yet delicious, piece of pear. "It tastes wonderful, regardless of the aesthetics." They moved to the living room with their improvised dinner, settling into a comfortable silence that spoke of growing familiarity and ease. The night outside wrapped around the city, its starless cloak a sharp contrast to the vibrant life inside John's apartment. John broke the silence, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Mira, there's something I've been wondering," he began, hesitancy in his voice. "Your world, with all its order and structure, how does love fit into it? Here, it's messy and beautiful and unpredictable." Myra's expression softened. "On my planet, relationships are often arranged for compatibility in terms of genetics and social contribution. Love, as you know it, isn't the foundation. It's more about partnership and duty." "That sounds practical, but not very passionate," John commented, his eyes searching hers. "It is," she confessed. "That's why what I'm experiencing with you, it's different. It's disorienting in a way, but also exhilarating." Encouraged by her openness, John reached out, taking her hand. "I'm glad we're experiencing this together, Mira. There's something quite remarkable about exploring emotions that are universally acknowledged but uniquely experienced." Mira squeezed his hand in return, her smile reflecting mixed emotions. "John, being with you, I feel more human, more alive than structured order ever allowed me to feel." Their conversation gradually shifted from serious topics to more playful banter, and soon they found themselves sharing personal anecdotes and dreams. The hours slipped by unnoticed, the connection deepening with every shared laugh and every vulnerable moment. As the night deepened, John grew bolder. "Mira, would you stay tonight?" he asked softly, his voice laced with anticipation. The question hung in the air, charged with possibility. Mira looked at him, her decision clear in her calm, sure gaze. "Yes, I'd like that very much," she answered, her voice barely above a whisper. They moved together, drawn by a magnetic pull that felt both inevitable and right. In the quiet of John's bedroom, they explored the intimacy of touch and kiss, discovering the contours of each other's worlds through gentle exploration. John marveled at the feel of her skin, luminescent and smooth under his fingers. Mira reveled in the warmth of his touch, each caress a language unto itself. As they kissed, the room seemed to dissolve around them, leaving nothing but the shared heat of their connection. "I brought an alien girl to bed, not knowing that she was a princess," John murmured between kisses, the words a playful acknowledgement of their extraordinary situation. Mira laughed softly, her breath warm against his skin. And I brought a human into my heart, not knowing he would fill it so completely. Their night together was a tapestry of new sensations and deep emotions, each moment a step further into uncharted territory. As they finally lay in quiet contemplation, the night whispered around them, a soft cocoon in the bustling universe outside. In the tender, vulnerable hours of the early morning, they found comfort in each other's arms, the silence speaking volumes of the trust and connection that had blossomed between them. The dawn light crept slowly into the room, spilling over the two lovers intertwined, a silent witness to a bond that had transcended worlds. The light of morning filtered through the blinds, casting a warm glow over the entwined figures of John and Mira. As they awoke, the reality of their situation, so easily forgotten in the night's embrace, began to settle between them. John stretched, his arm brushing against Mira's. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice thick with sleep and newfound affection. Mira smiled softly, turning to face him. "Good morning. I haven't slept so peacefully in, well, I can't remember when." Their ease from the night before lingered, but as they rose and began preparing breakfast together, the weight of their cultural differences began to surface. As John scrambled eggs, he broached the topic that had been on his mind since dawn. "Mira, last night was incredible, but I can't help wondering about the implications. Your people, with their strict customs, how will they see this?" Mira handed him a plate, her expression turning serious. "It's complicated. Relationships like ours are unheard of, not just frowned upon. If it were known, it could jeopardize my position, my family's standing." John paused, the fork halfway to his mouth. "That's a lot of pressure. I don't want to cause you any trouble." Mira sighed, sitting at the table. "I knew the risks when I decided to stay last night. I don't regret it, John, but we need to be careful about how we proceed." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. John's friend, Tom, bounded into the apartment, his usual exuberance filling the room. "Hey, John, I thought I'd find you up. Whoa, did I interrupt something?" John exchanged a glance with Mira before responding. "Hey, Tom, you're just in time for breakfast. Join us?" Tom, unaware of the night's revelations, happily accepted. As they ate, the conversation flowed more easily, with Tom discussing the latest tech developments and city gossip. After breakfast, John pulled Tom aside. "Tom, there's something important I need to discuss with you later, privately." "Sure thing, buddy," Tom replied, sensing the seriousness in his friend's tone. He left soon after, promising to catch up later. Once alone again, John and Mira tackled the reality of their situation. "We could keep this secret, just between us," John suggested, taking her hands in his. "No one else needs to know." Mira nodded slowly. "We could try, but we should consider the long term, not just the now. I have responsibilities, a duty to my people. I can't stay on Earth indefinitely." The gravity of her words hung in the air, but John was resolute. "Then we make the most of the time we have. Let's not worry about the future just yet." They spent the day together, exploring parts of the city Mira hadn't seen yet. As they visited museums and parks, they talked about mundane things, allowing themselves to enjoy the simple pleasure of each other's company. As the day drew to a close, they found themselves at a quiet lookout point overlooking the city. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, a beautiful backdrop to their bittersweet reality. "Mira, whatever happens, I'm glad I met you," John said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Mira leaned into him, her voice soft. "And I, you. No matter what the future holds, I will cherish these moments, John." They watched the sun set in silence, the city lights slowly twinkling to life below them. In that moment, they were just two beings, caught in the web of an improbable love, making the most of an uncertain future. As the novelty of their initial meetings faded into a deeper, more secretive relationship, John and Mira became adept at navigating the complexities of their clandestine love. They established routines and rituals that allowed them to share their worlds privately, away from prying eyes. One chilly evening, John prepared his apartment for another quiet night in with Mira. He set out candles, dimmed the lights, and put on some soft music that had become their music over the weeks. When Mira arrived, she carried a small, mysterious box. "I brought something special tonight," she announced, her eyes twinkling with excitement. John's curiosity piqued as he helped her with her coat. "What is it?" he asked, leading her into the living room where the ambience was set. "Open it and see," Mira replied, handing him the box. Inside, John found a set of ancient-looking cards. "What are these?" "They're oracle cards, used for guidance and decision-making on my planet. I thought it could be fun to read them together," Mira explained, her voice filled with a mixture of nostalgia and amusement. As they settled on the floor, cross-legged and cozy, Mira shuffled the cards expertly. "Think of a question, something you seek insight into," she instructed. John thought for a moment, his mind swirling with questions about their future. Finally, he said, "Okay, I've got one." Mira spread the cards in a fan and gestured for him to draw one. The card he picked was beautifully intricate, its symbols foreign yet somehow meaningful. Myra's interpretation was thoughtful, blending her planet's traditions with a sensitivity to John's context. As this card shows, balancing the seen and unseen forces in your life will lead to new paths, Mira concluded, her interpretation cryptic yet strangely apt. They spent hours diving into the oracle, each draw bringing them closer, their conversation weaving through light-hearted banter and deep, reflective discussions. "Your world has such rich traditions," John observed, genuinely impressed by her deep connection to her heritage. "And yours has such freedom," Mira countered, her tone wistful. "The freedom to explore and express, even in love." Their dialogue was paused as John's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. Tom's name flashed urgently. "Sorry, I need to take this," John said, excusing himself. He returned a few minutes later, his expression tense. "Tom's organizing a big gathering tomorrow. Wants us both there. It's important for my work." Myra's smile faltered slightly. "A gathering? John, you know I can't." "I know," John interrupted, his voice low. "But maybe it's time to not hide, at least not from my closest friends." The suggestion hung heavily between them, fraught with implications. Mira considered it, the weight of her decision visible in her furrowed brow. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, for you. I'll come." The rest of the evening was spent in a gentle embrace of acceptance and trepidation, each aware of the challenges the next day might bring. As they lay together later that night, the city's hum a distant lull, John whispered, "Thank you for trusting me, for being brave." Mira responded in kind, her voice soft yet resolute. "For us, John, it's worth it." Their sleep was fitful, both apprehensive and hopeful about the step they were about to take. The night passed slowly, their dreams a tangle of earthly and cosmic visions, mirroring the complexities of their hearts entwined against the odds of their vastly different origins. The morning of the gathering, John and Mira awoke with a shared sense of purpose, albeit lined with apprehension. They prepared in silence, each lost in thought over the potential outcomes of the day. John broke the quiet as he adjusted his tie in the mirror. "Are you sure about this, Mira? We don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with." Mira, adjusting her own attire, met his gaze in the reflection. "I'm sure, John. It's a step we need to take, for the sake of whatever this is between us. Besides, I trust your friends." The gathering was held at a trendy rooftop venue, with panoramic views of the city skyline at sunset. As they arrived, the atmosphere was lively, filled with John's colleagues and close friends, including Tom, who waved them over enthusiastically. "John, Mira, over here," Tom called out. He greeted them with a wide grin. "Glad you could make it, Mira." Folks are eager to meet the woman who's captured John's attention. Mira smiled, her poise unshaken by the crowd. John stayed close, his hand lightly touching her back, a silent pillar of support. As the evening progressed, John introduced Mira to various groups, explaining her as a consultant from abroad, which was technically the truth. The conversations were light, filled with discussions about work, the latest tech innovations, and city life. During a quieter moment, John pulled Tom aside. "Tom, there's something important about Mira you should know. It's a bit out of the ordinary." Tom's expression turned curious. Oh, sounds intriguing. She's not just from abroad, Tom. She's from another world, literally. Myra's an alien, John disclosed, his tone serious yet calm. Tom's eyes widened, his initial shock giving way to fascination. Wow, that's not what I expected. But hey, she's great, and if she makes you happy, that's all that matters to me. Relieved by Tom's response, John felt a weight lift off his shoulders. They rejoined Mira, who was gracefully handling a conversation about Earth's cultural diversity. Later, as the sky darkened and the city lights flickered on, Mira pulled John aside. "It went well, don't you think?" she asked, a hint of relief in her voice. "It did," John agreed, squeezing her hand. "I'm proud of you, Mira." They shared a quiet moment, watching the party continue around them. But as the night wore on, Mira grew thoughtful, her earlier tension creeping back. "John, there's something else. My time on Earth. It's coming to an end soon. My people need me back." John's heart sank, the reality of her words cutting through the noise of the gathering. "So, what does this mean for us?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mira looked at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It means we enjoy the time we have left. And then, I go back." The rest of the evening passed in a blur for John. Laughter and music floated around him, but his thoughts were focused on Mira, on their limited time together. As they left the gathering, hand in hand, the city around them felt both incredibly close and impossibly distant. They walked home in silence, each lost in their thoughts, but together, united by their extraordinary journey and now faced with its impending conclusion. The final days of Myra's stay on Earth passed with a bittersweet quickness that neither John nor Mira were prepared for. Each moment felt charged with the urgency of last chances as they sought to encapsulate a lifetime of experiences into a handful of days. On her last evening, John took Mira to their favorite spot in the city, a quiet, secluded park that overlooked the skyline, where they had spent countless hours talking and dreaming together. As they sat watching the sunset, John turned to Mira, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't believe this is our last night together. Feels like we just met." Mira took his hand, squeezing it gently. "I know, John. I feel the same. But I will carry every moment we shared with me, no matter where I go." John nodded, struggling to find the words that could bridge the gap between their two worlds. "And I'll keep you with me, here," he said, placing his other hand over his heart. "Always." They spent the evening reminiscing about the first time they met, their night of revelations, and the joyous discovery of their deepening bond. Each memory was a treasure, polished by the glow of their shared affection. As the stars began to pepper the sky, John pulled out a small, wrapped package. "I have something for you, Mira. A parting gift." He handed it to her, watching as she unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a digital frame, preloaded with pictures of their time together. Myra's eyes welled up as she scrolled through the images, each one a poignant reminder of their journey. "Thank you, John. This means everything to me," Mira whispered, her voice steady despite her tears. John smiled sadly. "There's also a video message in there. For when you miss this, our little world." They held each other as the city lights twinkled below, the universe around them vast and unknowable, yet for a moment, it seemed very small and intimate. Eventually, they stood, hand in hand, and walked back to John's apartment. They spent the night in each other's arms, not speaking much, for words were inadequate to express the depth of their feelings. In the morning, John drove Mira to the location where her people would come to retrieve her. The early dawn was quiet, the world around them still asleep. Standing by the car, they faced each other, neither wanting to be the first to say goodbye. "Mira, John started, his voice breaking. "Chill," Mira interrupted, placing a finger on his lips. "No goodbyes, John. It's never goodbye. Let's just say, till next time." John nodded, pulling her into a final embrace. "Till next time," he echoed, holding her tightly. As Myra's people arrived, a silent, shimmering ship descending without a sound, John stepped back, his heart heavy but full. Mira turned one last time, her smile a sad, beautiful thing. "Remember me, John." Always, he replied, his voice a whisper carried away by the morning breeze. As the ship took her away, John felt a tear trail down his cheek, a testament to the love and loss intertwined in his heart. He watched until the ship was nothing more than a speck in the dawn sky, then turned and walked back to his car, alone but forever changed. Back in his now too quiet apartment, John sat down at his computer and began typing. He poured their story into words, a memoir of sorts, an ode to the alien princess who had changed his world. His heart ached with her absence, but he found comfort in the writing, in the reliving of their shared moments. As he wrote, the sun rose higher, bathing his room in light, promising a new day, a new beginning, even without Mira by his side. He knew their story was far from over, and with each word he typed, he kept her close, a cherished presence in his heart and his history.